What is going on, everybody? What is going on? Welcome to another live stream. Come back live. I love doing these. Got a little echo over here because Deirdre's listening to it on the side. Deirdre, you never get on camera and say hi to everyone.
No, yeah, today's a good one. I'm just trying to make sure your audio is okay.
Yeah, you're good. You're good. Everyone, I'm super excited, pumped, very pumped because I have a very special guest today. We decided we're going to start bringing on some guests. I don't know if we're going to do this every week, maybe every other week, whenever we feel like it type deal. We have a special guest today who is a LinkedIn expert, is kind of how I see him, but he does a lot of things. So definitely entrepreneur at heart, but there's a lot of really cool things that this person has done. Specifically, what I can't wait to talk about is he's grown an email list of 12,000 people with just LinkedIn and I don't want to call it LinkedIn marketing or LinkedIn organic is how he's done it. So super cool. I'm really excited to bring him on and have him answer some questions, learn a little about him and his story doing that, especially at such a young age. I mean, 12,000 people on an email list is incredible. We have an entire content team and we don't even have close to that. So very excited to bring him on. He consulted with us. The way we found him, which as you guys know, I reach out to anyone that I find useful to reach out to. If I want to learn something from them, I send them an email. And I reach out to, actually, no, I think Joseph might have reached out to me. I don't remember. But either way, I saw what he's doing on LinkedIn. I was like, this is freaking awesome. You got to get on a call with us. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to make the call. So we talked to Kirsten, our marketing director, and they had a really great convo. And we're like, you know what? We got to bring you on the live stream. So without further ado, let me get Joseph on here to the live stream.
Hey, Mike.
Hey, Joseph.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Thanks so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. Guys, for everyone watching, if you do have questions or comments, pop them in the chat below. Happy to answer those as we go here, like always. So, LV Plug says, let's go. What up? Cool. All right, Joseph, before we get into it, again, thank you so much for doing this. Why don't you just give like the quick elevator pitch of like, here's who I am, here's what I do, before we kind of jump into things.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm a huge MDC fan. I've been watching since the very first episode. I don't remember exactly how I found you, but I just thought it was such a cool concept. And I'm also from Philly, so that's cool. I'm a student, though, right now at University of Michigan. I'm a senior studying economics, and I've done a couple internships in the past, and those like internships kind of led me to be like more active on LinkedIn and just talking about the side projects that I've done to get those internships. And yeah, as you introduced me, like I've gathered about 12,000 people onto my email list for TechPod, which is I guess you could call it a media platform and a student community of people who are interested in getting into the business side of the tech industry. So I started out college as a computer science major, and I don't know, it just wasn't really for me. Like I always grew up like as like the math and science kid, and maybe being Asian has something to do with that. But but no, eventually like I got to college and I was like, you know, I don't know, I don't really like this like computer science stuff. I don't really think that I could see myself sitting at a desk all day like coding. More interested in the business side. But I was still interested in like the tech industry. I think like there's lots of opportunity there. So I just started talking about my experience, you know, being in the business side of the tech industry for my internship at Salesforce this summer. And I just kind of like talked about that, and the audience grew this summer from 0 to like, yeah, 12,000.
That's insane. That's insane. So I want to talk a little bit more about that. So let me get this straight. So you started something called TechPod. How long ago was this?
TechPod officially started in August.
August. Okay, so it hasn't even been a year, and you've grown the email list strictly from LinkedIn to 12,000?
From LinkedIn, and then we kind of started on TikTok too, and we made a couple viral videos there, and that grew the email list. maybe about 1,000 or 2,000, but most of it has been like completely.
That is insane. You know what I love so much about this is the two platforms that I push the most right now, at least for organic traffic, is TikTok and LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Usually, though, it's TikTok first, LinkedIn second.
Yeah.
But in your case, again, this is why we had you on. We saw what you're doing. We're like, oh my God, this is incredible. Now, for anyone that's watching that isn't building an email list, number one, you should be building an email list. Number two, building an email list to 12,000 organically is insane, especially I don't know if you realize that or not, Joseph. Building a 12,000 person email list in the short period of time you did is it's incredible. What exactly, like, what is the email list about? How did you build it? And how did you kind of come up with the idea to do that?
Yeah. So it's an email newsletter. So this organization Tech Pod that I started, it's sort of you could think of it as like an actually helpful career center. It's like we're trying to accomplish what career centers are supposed to do, which is like help students find jobs. But my experience with like career centers and like career coaches in general
awful.
sorry
to cut you off here. The career centers at college are literally the biggest scam. When they go and they interview, what they do is they put their arm on the desk, they get one of those machines, they see if they have a pulse, and if the higher the pulse, the more likely they are to get the job. And if they have a pulse, they get the job, and then you get this fucking brain dead idiot that doesn't know anything, doesn't give a shit about your success or not in life. And it's infuriating. I went to Penn State, and the people that like helped you with like figuring out what classes to take and like with careers, absolute fucking joke. Absolute joke. It's like let's just forget about college for a second. Outside of college, like imagine paying someone $100,000 to mentor you or consult you or teach you, and that's what you get. It's like, it is so fucked up, the standards that colleges have when it comes to careers and like someone helping you guide you through what classes to take and whatnot. So sorry for that rant. Something I'm very passionate about because there's so many people that struggle with this, and it's really messed up. It's so messed up. It's a screwed up.
I'm glad you went on your rant, because that's like, it kind of sets the stage. It like sets that's like our problem statement, right? You kind of made it easy for me to tell the story. Like that's the problem. Yeah. I
wait, sorry, this is incredible. So
all the time. Yeah.
When you say career services, is it more so like, hey, here's what you're going to do after college, or is it also navigating what classes to take and how to do that stuff?
It's mainly on the professional side. So, okay. And it's not services. So we don't sell anything. We connect students and young professionals with opportunities, some of them free, some of them paid. And we also just write our own newsletter with free job postings and networking tips. And we host like weekly events where we pull people like who've gotten into those roles, not career coaches, but people who actually landed those roles that our audience wants to get, and just interview them and ask them, what did you actually do to get into these positions? So we're trying to make it very direct. Like, here's the people who got in, here's the people who want to get in. Let's like make some real education happen.
So are you monetizing the list right now, or is it just strictly like, hey, we want to help? Like, what are you doing right now in terms of monetization?
Right now, we just started monetizing. Yeah. So we've done a couple of sponsored newsletters and a couple of sponsored events. So like we do the weekly events and the weekly newsletter. We are kind of like putting together. Are you familiar with Morning Brew? The media
Morning Brew recently sold for, I think, like
$75 million.
The Hustle, by the way, just sold too. If you're familiar with the Hustle,
sold also to HubSpot, I think, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
For an undisclosed amount. Now, I actually thought originally they sold for like 27 million because someone had TechCrunch. Which, by the way, guys, any of these media companies are fucking jokes. Like TechCrunch published that they sold for $27 million, and it was like based off of like the way it was worded was very manipulative. I don't know what else to call it, but they pretty much said like Axis Group values the company at 27 million. Therefore, they kind of worded it like they sold it for 27 million, which really it's undisclosed. So you got to be really careful with these fucking media companies because you never actually know the truth. But I think they sold for a lot more than 27 million. I know they have a lot of different revenue sources, a lot different than Morning Brew because they have something called Trends, which is incredible. Everyone watching should check it out. But yeah, point is newsletters are really big. And if you go follow some of these, I know Substack, I don't know if you heard of Substack, is something that's really getting popular. If you go on Twitter and follow anyone in the entrepreneurial world, these things are getting very, 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 very popular. And I love the business that you're running right now because there's very little cost to start doing this. Like if you're the one writing, you're just doing, you're putting the content together and you're building a business based off something I'm assuming you're super passionate about. And there's no cost involved. And these companies are selling for a lot. In your case, Joseph, if you keep at it, I mean, the growth rate is insane. Going from 0 to 12,000 is insane. Like that is freaking awesome. If you keep at this, like thinking of just like acquisition alone, there's a lot of like companies that could potentially acquire a company like that in like the recruiting space. So I think it's super cool. I don't know where we left off though, because I did cut you off there.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting that I actually do use Substack. We use Substack because it's free. That's why we originally started using it. But
well, they take 5%, I think, right?
If you monetize it directly, so if you create a premium subscription for your newsletter, then they take a cut of that. But I mean, if you do like an influencer deal or like a brand deal, they can't. Like they don't know that you did the brand. So
that's really cool. So right now, plans to monetize, or is it continue doing like sponsorships and in these weekly events that you're talking about?
There's a lot of options. Like we've been thinking. I have a co-founder, by the way, that she's another student who goes to Berkeley, and we're both seniors, and we've been building this together since August. But we've been talking about like lots of different options. Like once you have the audience, you can kind of do anything. And we have a pretty good idea of like who the audience is. They're like 18 to 30-year-old, mostly in the US, but somewhat international. People who are into the business side of the tech industry, industries like roles like sales and marketing and product management, strategy and operations. And so it has a lot of options. Like we could even be a recruiting agency.
I was just gonna say, do you have any idea of like how the recruiting world works? Like right now, because of COVID, I don't know that industry's probably been screwed a little bit, but like recruiters typically charge 20 to 25% for placement of salary. So, out of college, let's say tech role, someone's getting paid, I don't know, I'm gonna make some up, $70,000, $80,000. Placements for that are typically 20%. So, you make a placement, that's $16,000 for every placement. I would definitely, if I was in your situation, I'd be like thinking about a lot of different ways to potentially monetize. One of those would definitely be that.
Yeah.
Figuring, like, I would talk to recruiting, like I would talk to like freelance recruiters, like solo recruiters, and I'd also talk to like people that own like recruiting agencies as mentors. I wouldn't work with them. I would work with them as mentors to like learn a little bit about the business and how to maybe go and get companies, because you could send 20 cold emails and get clients. Like you could email a bunch of these companies and say, hey, like I run this newsletter, we have this many people, we do sponsorships, but we also do recruiting. So then maybe sell like kind of packages like sponsorship and or recruiting. And then as you kind of build this email list, you build a list of more and more and more people. The money is definitely I would assume on the like placement side, just an assumption though. But yeah, that's so what I want to talk a little bit more about instead of monetization. One, I'm curious, anyone that's watching, if you've ever planned on building a newsletter, feel free to drop those questions in the comments. how did you go from 0 to 12,000? Like, kind of just explain to me. Explain to me like how you went about doing that with LinkedIn. Like anyone that's watching right now, they're trying to get started with LinkedIn and they want to build a newsletter, or they just want to build exposure for whatever their service or business is, which is a newsletter is a great way to get started before you launch a product, in my opinion. But talk to me about how you can, anyone watching can leverage LinkedIn to do that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like I'll tell you, and I feel like these tactics and this like playbook, I guess, applies to any just distribution method. Like doesn't have to be LinkedIn, it could be TikTok or Instagram or whatever. And it doesn't have to be a media company or just an email list. Like some of the really great companies that you know about today like started as just like a social media page or like an email list. Like Morning Brew, for example, is like it's like a multimedia company now, but it just started as an email list. So yeah, it's a great way to launch a product, or if you want to just keep going as a media business, then it's a good way to do that too. But yeah, in the beginning, it was just me like trying to make friends, honestly. Like my internship got moved to remote. I was supposed to be in San Francisco and I was like super excited for that. But then, you know, it got moved to remote. I was just going to be at home sitting at my desk all day. So I was like, all right, I got to make friends somehow. So I went on LinkedIn, and at that point I had 400 connections, and I had never really used LinkedIn to actually like talk to people. Like I got a couple of those scammy messages that were just like, hey, do you want to like invest in Bitcoin or like join my MLM or whatever? And I was like, I don't know. That's how I saw LinkedIn. I had never actually talked to people. But
I'm getting this new scam recently. I don't know if anyone else has this, but I keep getting asked to be on advisory boards, and I don't know what the scam is. Maybe it's not a scam, but I've gotten like 3 or 4 different messages from people saying that they want me to be on their advisory board, and I just don't respond. So I'm like, who the fuck are you? I don't want to be on some random advisory board for some whatever it is you're like. It's just weird. I think is that have you gotten anything like that?
No, I think you might have to have like an advisor in one of your titles, and then they like auto search you or something.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know why I keep getting it. Yeah, I do. I was on an advisory board for a company that raised a good amount of money. So maybe that's why. I don't know.
Yeah, it's possible. They just look at your titles and they don't actually know like who you are. They don't look into you. It's all automated. But
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's how I saw LinkedIn. Like, I didn't really think it was a place to actually meet people, but I just started making friends. Like, I just started like reaching out to peers. Especially, I don't know, I guess part of it was that I felt very fortunate that I had an internship this summer, because like so many people had their internships canceled or just didn't find internships because of the economy and pandemic and everything. So I just like started talking to people and offering just my time just to like see what people's problems were, like people my age or like slightly younger, like sophomores or juniors. And a lot of them, like the trend that I noticed in my conversations with them was like that they were very like intrigued by my position of like business operations at Salesforce. Because I don't know, a lot of college students I think have this misconception that if you want to work at a tech company, you have to know how to code, or you have to be like a software engineer. But like when you think about it, like that doesn't really make sense. Like software businesses are still businesses, so of course they're going to need business people.
Yeah, you have project management, you have product management, you have sales, you have marketing.
Yeah,
a lot of those roles. I mean, there's a lot of data roles, which kind of starts to get a little into tech.
Roles that people like haven't really heard of, like solution engineering, for example, is like pre-sales, like solution architects, or like technical writers. Like I'm going to be a technical writer at Salesforce, and you know, you don't need to code for that either.
So you accepted a full-time offer?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So I'll be doing that this year or later this year.
Nice. That's really exciting. So, and I'll ask you some more questions about that. So I guess in terms of like growing on LinkedIn, kind of talk to me about how you started really grow an audience on LinkedIn and how you went from the 0 to 12,000.
Yeah. So it kind of starts with these conversations actually. So like these conversations were actually the core of how I did my first viral post. So I had 400 connections. I'll give you a super quick recap and then I'll go into detail. So there was my first post where I basically just the first post that I used to actually try to get audience. So that first post, I basically just introduced myself to the world. I said, "Hey, I'm Joseph. I'm a student and I'm doing an internship at Salesforce. I've done a bunch of side projects in the past, and I feel like I have kind of an unconventional background, just doing like e-commerce and doing my own side projects. If anyone wants to connect, um, um, connect with me, and you'll be seeing more of my posts in the future." That post got 20,000 views when I only
Holy
had
shit.
like 400 connections, and there was just a ton of organic engagement. But the reason why I told you that whole story about like getting on all these like virtual coffee chats with these people was because like if I hadn't done that, those people wouldn't have like interacted with my post. So like
That's incredible.
all it was actually
Man, I'm sorry to cut you up, but I'm so happy I brought you on because the there's so many things you're hitting here that people like people are really struggling with, which is there's so much I want to talk about. The first is that you mentioned is doing these virtual chats. A
Mhm.
lot of people are like, fuck, how do I network? And you need to be building your network. You need to be building your network. So um if that was really important and that really helped to make that go viral, because I'm assuming they like liked it or commented on it after talking to me, like, Joseph, you're awesome. Thanks for chatting, like things like that. And then when you comment and like, for everyone that doesn't know, on a LinkedIn post, a lot of times it'll show up in your feed. So if Joseph posts something and I like it and you follow me on LinkedIn, it'll say Mike Black liked Joseph's post. So that's what Joseph's referring to when he's saying he got like a lot of organic the people that are following him that he talked to like engaged with it, then it's showing up on their page and then it's getting a lot
Yeah.
more viewership. So just for context for those that don't know how to use LinkedIn, um, or like how that all works, how are you setting up those virtual you call them coffee chats? How are you setting those up? Just cold, like you find someone, you're like, hey, you're cool, let's hop on a call.
Yeah, there's two ways. You can either just reach out just by scrolling through your feed and finding people who you find interesting, or you can just make posts and people will reach out to you. So that's how I got a bunch of coffee chats in the first, using that first post that got like 20K views. I probably had like 30 people reach out to me and I just said yes to all of them. And then I just like that, it compounded. So the next post that I made got 100K views because of all of those conversations. I don't know if it was because of, but it definitely had
That's
something to do with it.
insane.
But then the next one after that had 300,000 views. It's like I knew, like the weird thing about it was I did not know that the 20K one would hit 20K. Like I had no idea that you can't, like people are obsessed with like going viral. Like, oh, I'm gonna go viral on TikTok or I'm gonna go viral on LinkedIn. You can't do it. Like you can't, it's all luck. Like it just happens out of nowhere. But then once you do go viral once, you can manufacture the viral again. Like you can ride that momentum, and that's like the post right after the 20K. I knew that that one was going to get at least 20K just because of like all the conversations I was having with people. I knew that people would be interacting with it. Um, yeah, and LinkedIn Organics is just crazy. Like when you like someone's post or you comment, it shows that comment to like your pretty much your whole network. So if someone who has like 5,000 connections likes your post and you only have 400 connections, like it just got shown to their entire network. So that's why that's why I encourage everyone to like make LinkedIn posts because
This is insane, by the way, Joseph. I don't know if you realize how crazy this is, like how valuable this is. Like I'm blown. I can't believe this. And what's crazier is like the people that aren't willing to put in the work aren't going to get these results. There's a lot of things you're doing behind the scenes here. Like when I see one of your posts and you get 100,000 views, there's a lot of work behind the scenes of actually building relationships. But like that's like an absolute dopamine dump for someone like me hearing that because like anyone that's listening right now, for anyone that's live or watching this once it's over, this is the amount of value understanding this is insane. Like, this is so exciting to me because you're doing two of my favorite things, which one is building really good, real connections with people. And then two, because you're building real connections with people, it's in turn making your content go viral and bringing in more connections and setting you up. It's building a lot of credibility. This is one of the most insane hacks I've ever heard in my life for building a ton of viewership and credibility in a very short period of time.
Yeah, and that's just the top of funnel. So that's like you're asking me like how did I grow to 2K? So that's the LinkedIn post. But then like once after I got all those interactions, I like followed up with all those people and just offered them like free resources. Like for example, and thinking back to it, I wasn't thinking about this at the time, but thinking back to it, like that's a lead magnet. Like that's what marketers call lead magnet.
Yes.
So I had this resource. I was like, hey, I'll give away my like the cover letter that like if you're interested in seeing like the cover letter that I used to land my internship, just comment. And then I followed up with all those people, sent them the email, but then in the email I had my sign up link for my newsletter. So then I was like, here's my cover letter, and then if you're interested in receiving more resources like this from me, sign up here.
Incredible. So you didn't even realize that at the time, but for context, for people that are watching, a lead magnet, a lot of times what people will do is they'll add value to get someone to sign up for something. You were just doing this out of the goodness of you just want to build relationships and help people, it seems like is how it started. But what you were doing, which I cannot say enough, again, for context for those that are watching, Joseph was adding a shit ton of value. And then when the shit ton of value was received, and then they see that he has a newsletter that is more value. That's what, again, going from 0 to 12,000 in that period of time is insane. So that's what drove those 12,000 people to sign up for the newsletter.
Yeah. And it also like it built trust. So like the newsletter has a like really good engagement rate. Like the first ever newsletter we sent had like a 50% open rate. And since then it's fluctuated between like 35 and 50%. But like I think it like since it was built on those like a very like genuine like connection with the audience, I think that's what helped. Like for example, in my newsletter, I opened it with, so I knew this is going to be the TechPod newsletter, and TechPod is like it's a brand, right? It feels like a brand, but
it is.
at the very beginning, I said like, hey, it's Joseph from LinkedIn, instead of saying like, hello, here's the TechPod newsletter in a very like corporate tone. It's just like, hey, this is Joseph from LinkedIn. I tried to keep it like very conversational, and I think that helps the middle of funnel like very like stay engaged.
Yeah, that's great. So I'm curious. So again, for context, the people you're reaching out to are people that are like very specifically college students. Those are the people that you're building relationships with, correct?
I would say about 90% college students and some like slightly older people, like young professionals.
Great. And then in terms of, so you reach out to them, and then in terms of going from like 20,000 to 100,000 in viewership, is that because you continue to do like those 30 calls, or is that because like you're doing 30 calls, 30 calls, 30 calls, 30 calls, and then you had like, like 120 people that you had talked to, so that kind of snowballs over time, or like why did it go from 20,000 to 100,000?
Yeah, so I think I messed up the timeline a little bit. So before the 20K post, I had not done that many calls. I had done maybe like 5. I was connected with like 5 influential people. Influential as in like micro influencers, like people who had like maybe 10,000 followers on LinkedIn. But those people liked my post, which helped it get to 20K. After that, went viral, mini viral 20K. Like that's when all those people came into my DMs and just like wanted to talk. So that was, I would say, about 30 people after that one post went viral, which led to the 100K. After that, I didn't really need to get on that many calls anymore. I would say it was about 30 anyway. But
Got
I think what drove the next one was just the fact that people like expected, like they saw, they like, if you think about the flow, like they see my post in the feed, they comment on it, they're like, oh gosh, I want that cover letter. That sounds really valuable. They get my email, and now they've received like two, like they know me from two places. Like they know me from LinkedIn and they know from me from email. So now they've sort of like built this relationship with me where they kind of, the trust is built. So then once the next post came, they already had that expectation that he, like, oh, Joseph is going to deliver value. So I think that's that. I did. I was probably about 30 coffee chats
So
again after the 100K, but I
makes
think it was
sense.
just the fact that I got the email that helped the third one go to get to like 300K.
That's awesome. So I have so many questions. The first is, what's the most viral post you've had on LinkedIn?
So that 300K one was the most viral. That one
Cool.
Was about a database of recruiters. So I was talking about how all the jobs that people apply to and then like just get ghosted. Like the way around that is to like actually like reach out to recruiters and make sure you get your foot in the door and get in contact with a human being instead of getting like shut out by these automated like systems.
Mm-hmm.
So I created this database, and it wasn't even that much work. I just kind of like curated it from like multiple sources in addition to some of my own just like sourcing. But it was just like this huge like spreadsheet of like thousands of recruiters' names and their companies and their LinkedIn profiles for people to like reach out to if they're applying to those companies. And that post got 300K.
That's awesome. So then, in terms of that, how often are you posting on LinkedIn?
Yeah, during the summer, I tried to post at least once a week. Not at least, maybe about once a week. And now I've shifted towards directing my attention to just like managing the team. Like we're not generating enough revenue to pay people, so everyone's volunteer right now. But like we have a newsletter editor, an events manager. We run like a fellowship program where we basically like train influencers, and then we have like a mentorship program. So my attention is kind of like directed towards that now. And I say I don't have time to post weekly, but I like, in reality, it's just a matter of priorities.
Sure.
But yeah, so it's inconsistent now. I would say like every 2 weeks maybe.
Gotcha. So every 2 weeks, do you have, from what you know now, the LinkedIn algorithm, is there like a sweet spot for here's how often to post on LinkedIn and here's too many, here's not enough?
No. So there's actually no formula. Nobody knows any of this stuff, but like everyone will tell you a different thing. But this is just my opinion. I don't think there's any specific like schedule that people should follow. I think it really depends. Like I've seen people who post every single day and they consistently get like 300 likes on all their posts, which is probably equates to like 100,000 views like every single day. But like the issue with that is that I think I've also seen people who post once a month, but then they get like 2,000 likes on every single post because they're the person who everyone expects to make a super valuable post like every month. So it just depends, and that's kind of what I've been trying to shift to. Like I just post, I'll just post here and there like random things, but then every month or so I'll make a huge announcement.
Mm-hmm.
Like for example, we had this mentorship program where we actually found all of these mentors. We built relationships with all these mentors from these top tech companies like Google and Facebook and Salesforce and Microsoft and all those. And So all these like employees at these companies, and we found people who are willing to mentor one-on-one people just completely for free. And we put together this program where we do weekly events, and um, so we put out the application for that program. That application went like mega viral. So that always gets like 1,000 comments because it's just like it's just like a massive free resource. So, but that announcement only comes out like every like 2 months. But people have come to kind of like expect me to make this like huge announcement. So that's why
That's
kind of
interesting. That's interesting. I think we try to keep it to like once a week, one
Mhm.
or two times a week. But from what I've heard from you, it's just like with that insane amount of um like success in building an email list that quickly, I would be posting as often as possible where I could hit high quality, whether that is once a week or once every other week or twice a week, whatever it is. Because again, like growing that list is just it's that's pretty incredible. I'm surprised. I really think that you guys could figure out how to monetize that, where you could definitely be bringing on um, people that you hire full time. I mean, if that was like paying the bills, would you be like, screw Salesforce? I'm gonna
Oh,
keep
that's
doing
the
this.
hope. Like, I don't know about Screw Salesforce, but I have 7 months right now from now until I start my full-time job. And I was listening to the podcast. Alex Lieberman, the founder of Morning Brew, he started Morning Brew when he was a senior in college too. So I was listening to the podcast, and he was saying that um, so right after he graduated, he was working on Morning Brew, and he started working for um, was it Morgan Stanley, or it was like one of those big banks.
Mhm.
Um, and then after like a few months of working there, he only had I think he had like 20K subscribers at Morning Brew, and he was making zero revenue. And that's the point where he decided to quit his full-time job and do it full time as a media company. So I was very inspired by that. Like I think this could definitely turn into a business. For the next 7 months, like our focus is just right now. It's sort of like grow as fast as possible, so that we have lots of options and can decide like what we want to do.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's incredible. Again, like even you could even monetize outside of that, like teaching other people how to grow an email list or go viral with LinkedIn. There's a lot of people who would pay for that. So like I don't know if you are familiar with I actually forget his name. The guy from I think it was called like Banff Marketing, Badass Marketing, I think it was
I think I've seen. I think I've seen that.
Josh Fector. I think
Uh-huh.
that's his name, Josh Fector. He got banned from LinkedIn actually. He's the one that started the Broetry bullshit. Um, on LinkedIn. So like anyone that goes on LinkedIn sees that. I think the algorithm kind of changed to like not make that work as well. But he's the one that started the Broetry stuff. You ever heard of that? I think that's what they call it. But where it's like the storytelling is like really annoying, where it's like line by line by line,
Oh, yeah,
that
yeah.
stuff. But it was working, and he like hacked their algorithm, and he shared it with everyone, and then LinkedIn banned him, which is total bullshit. But that guy killed LinkedIn, like absolutely killed it with LinkedIn, and then he started. I believe that's when he started Banff Marketing. He started helping others crush it with LinkedIn, and I mean they grew overnight to like 20 plus employees, I believe.
Wow.
So I mean that's also another option is like there's a lot of people who pay a lot of money for someone that just has an expertise with LinkedIn, which I think is very interesting. But also, again, like if you grew a email list from 0 to 12,000, you're doing something right. There's definite ways to monetize that. I'm trying to think if there's anyone I can connect you with outside of this. I'll talk to you later about that. But there's definite ways to monetize that where if you're even getting like on average like $1 to $2 per sub per month, then I mean like that's a pretty nice income. So I would definitely be looking into those things because you're onto something. I mean, even with placements, you have 12,000 people. If you could even place one of those every month, that's like we said, like around $16,000. So
Yeah, yeah.
that's pretty cool. Okay, so where are you at right now with it? Like, what's the goal? Are you trying to go from 12,000 to 100,000? Like, what's next for the actual email list? And what are you thinking in terms of like execution?
Yeah. So at the beginning of the year, at the new year, like January 1st, I think we had 9 or 10,000. So we grew really fast in this 1 month. Um, and we actually we set the goal for by the end of May, we want to have 20,000. But judging by the growth in the past month, like hopefully we can go past that. So the goal was like, so all these goals are like for May, because May is like when I graduate, and then I think that'll be a good benchmark to decide like, okay, what do I want to do with my summer? Should I continue this or should I do something else? So the goal is to hit 20K by May, which I think I should probably adjust that goal. And I also just want to figure out a business model because there's so many different things that you could do. Like there's the media company, there's the recruiting agency. I could just be a guru and like sell courses on how to like go viral on LinkedIn. Yeah, I don't know. I really don't.
Well, if you stick specifically to what you're passionate about, which is like helping with people with careers, I'm sure there's a lot of ways to monetize that, honestly.
Yeah.
Like a lot of ways. Like even if it's doing like resume writing, cover letter writing for the list, if it's, in my opinion, which I would personally go, is the recruiting side. Like if there's ways that you can get either A, like you said, like paid sponsors, or B, actually start placing people and kind of start like working even with recruiting agencies. Again, there's a lot of ways you could definitely monetize something like this.
Yeah.
Even if it's paid training, where like they're on the list, they get it for free, but every single month you do like a paid training or something like that. It's like $25, something that's like affordable. But again, there's a lot of ways to do it. So it's an exciting position to be in. Once you kind of figure that out, then you kind of set those revenue goals. And then once you have something that's working, what's cool is then you don't have to figure that out. You can evolve it over time, but then it's just like, okay, keep adding more subscribers to the email list. I guess the last thing I'm super curious about with LinkedIn specifically is what exactly are you doing in the post? Is there anything special that you're doing in the posts that you're putting out for anyone that's watching that wants to start with LinkedIn? Like, what would your recommendation be in terms of like getting started? And is there anything special in terms of like how you should post on LinkedIn?
The line by line storytelling thing is actually pretty accurate. It doesn't have to be line by line. It doesn't have to be like annoying, but just easy to read. Like I've seen a lot of posts that are just like a block of text. They're just very hard to read. I think it's just general like copywriting principles, nothing like super special. I think just, making a good hook. The purpose of the first line is to make them read the second line. The purpose of the second line is to help them read the third, and so on. And having a clear call to action at the end, like connect with me. That has helped me get lots more connections whenever I put that CTA. Sometimes the CTA is just comment. If I like talk about a subject in the post, and sometimes the CTA is just let's discuss in the comments, or asking what's your, I don't know, what are the problems that you have in recruiting, or whatever, and then that creates a discussion in the comments. So having concise storytelling, having a very clear call to action. I like to use emojis, just like knowing your audience. Like my audience is students, so like
I think it's
very conversational and casual too.
I think it's simple for anyone that's watching. Is like, one, you need to learn how to storytell in general. And then two, you need to learn how to storytell on the specific platform, whether it's TikTok or whether it's LinkedIn or whether it's Instagram. You have to learn how to create content for the platform. So on LinkedIn, knowing the general storytelling principles and how to create content, how to copyright is great, but then learning how to do it specifically for LinkedIn just adds that extra effectiveness to it. So, dude, this has been super valuable to me. I know anyone that's watching that wants to be creating content, this is I'm just like so thrilled about this, because anyone can do this. Anyone can do it. Anyone can get on and start creating content for LinkedIn. you just have to put the time in and actually create the content. You don't need to put in money in for ads. You don't need to spend, money in, put money into like things like brand. Like you could literally just start an email list, which I'm assuming you guys are using something like MailChimp, right? Or you said Substack. I don't know if they actually send the emails.
Yeah, it's just Substack.
So do they send the emails? Like,
Yeah, it's like a blog and an email at the same time.
Okay, they send blog? They do blog posting as well.
So yeah, you send the email and then it saves it to the blog at the same time.
Oh, I see. Okay, that's cool. That's what we do with our MDC emails. Is like we send it out, and then a week later we throw it out as a blog post because it's very similar. That's pretty cool. Is there anything else you want to talk about in regards to like LinkedIn or LinkedIn strategy?
Yeah, I guess I don't know. I feel like you have a lot of experience with this stuff. Like you did your own talent, like stuff with talent, and like even with Told Media. Like I was looking at your LinkedIn, and I was looking at the different like companies that you've done, and it seems like you know about that space. Like, so I was curious to just know, like, from your perspective, is that worth going down that path? Being like a talent agency. And
Yes, I personally love talent. I love talent, and when I say talent, I mean talent over what I call product/execution. So, which by the way, that's the route that Told Media is going to get rebranded into. I don't think we're going to continue after I'm done the MDC project. We're going to probably do a total rebrand of Told, which we're hired to be the agency, and we're hired for the responsibility of the success, failure, whatever of the project. Whereas talent is different, as you know, which is like there's different ways to do talent. One of them is recruiting, where it's like, here you go, you get a placement fee. The other is to do staffing, which is more like hourly staffing, where it's like, here you go, the rate's $50 an hour, you pay the person $40, so you have that $10 margin. I like talent significantly better because one, really at the end of the day, it depends on what you're best at and what you enjoy the most, but you don't have to. It's more profitable because you don't have as much account management involved as you do when you're dealing with clients. And for anyone that's watching doesn't know what account management is, it's really just like having to go back and forth with strategy with clients, managing the project, doing all the fun stuff that goes into having a client. That's kind of account management. So a lot of that's taken away, which means more profitable as an organization because that's overhead costs. So I love the recruiting side of it. I really do. Now, what you could do is now your problem that you have to solve is monetization. So either A, if you do go the recruiting route, you either need to get someone internally that's doing the placements, or you go externally and you work with someone on what's called a split. When you mentioned one of the companies I started was called We Are Talent. It was a platform for people to do what are called splits. So let's say like Salesforce needs to hire a senior engineer, right? And he comes to me and I'm the recruiter, and they're like, hey, the senior engineer gets paid, I'm going to say something that's a lot lower than they probably get paid, but make it easy, $100,000. We're going to give you 20% if you bring us someone, we hire them. Well, We Are Talent, the business I was building, is a place for split placements. So then Salesforce comes to me with that role. And then I go, great, I got Salesforce, but I actually don't have the talent. So then I go to another recruiter that maybe has the talent. They send me the talent and I send to Salesforce. If Salesforce hires that person, I get 10%, they get 10%. So that 20,000, I would get 10, they would get 10. So in your case, if you don't want to build an internal recruiting team, you could work with recruiters and split a fee and pretty much say, hey, we have this big list. You can leverage the list if you pay us half the fee when they get placed. And then you just need some legal contracts involved to do something like that. And then you don't have to like figure out how to like hire people, do all that crap. But in your case scenario, it could also be a great experience for you to actually do the placements yourself. And like, you'll start knowing who on the newsletter is like a really good at what they do, and maybe a little bit easier to place. Maybe you can work with like the top 3% of your email newsletter. Somebody just came off the top of my head. Work with the top 3% of our email newsletter. That's a easy pitch to someone at these bigger tech companies. Like, we have this email newsletter. We're going to give you the top 3% of those people. And somehow you validate that through a certain process that you create that you also pitch to them. And then on the newsletter side, like, you're adding a lot of value in some way, shape, or form. And then the top 3% somehow go through your process, and then you're offering it up to those companies. I think that there's an easy way to monetize if you can just figure it out. Because again, you just make one placement a month and there's $16,000. Now, if you can make more than one placement every single month, you could easily, I mean, with a 12,000 person list, I would have the hardest part in recruiting is the list of talent. That's the hardest part. Now, I don't know, what I will say is I don't know the market, and this is why I would reach out to recruiters. I don't, not recruiters like a recruiter at Salesforce. I'd reach out to recruiters that do placements for a living and they get paid to do it. I'm curious how valuable it is having a list of college versus like senior people. Like, how hard is it to recruit college talent? If the answer is like not super hard, then maybe the fees aren't as high. I don't know. I have no idea. So that's why I would talk to people that do this professionally. But either way, that 12,000 lists, you can definitely monetize that in some way, shape, or form. But yeah, I totally forget what the question was that you had asked. I think it was kind of like, how would I monetize it? So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, so it's interesting that you say that I could even do it internally, like not being a recruiter myself.
You don't need experience being a recruiter, by the way, at all. Like, I've done some of those things when I was building that business, so I understand it well. A lot of recruiters, what happens is they get a job out of college as a recruiter, and then they're a lifetime recruiter, and they end up maybe going on their own or something. And like, it's very easy to get a job as a recruiter. It's not, what you're already doing is like literally a recruiter's dream to have a list like that. Like, that's literally their dream, is to have a ongoing list like that. So you've solved the hardest problem. That's the hardest problem. The next problem to solve is just like selling people and saying like, yes, I will pay you 20%, getting a contract in place, and that's it. And then if you place them, again, I'm happy to go offline with this and explain it, but the standard's 20% fee.
That's interesting to hear. The hardest part of the recruiter's job is like building the audience and like
That's
building
the hardest part. The talent. So you have the hardest part figured out.
Interesting. Okay. So so you would say that, like, okay.
Now, one thing I will say is markets change. Right now, that's the hardest. When markets are hot, like really hot, the hardest is the talent. When it's the vice versa, when markets are cold and there's like a recession, then it switches, and it's harder to get businesses to work with. That's what I was told, because I haven't been doing this through any type of recession, but that's what I was told from recruiters. And I've talked to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of recruiters when I was building that company. So keep that in mind.
Okay. Yeah, I will definitely. Yeah, I mean, I'm inspired now. I'm gonna go out and write 50 cold emails and see what happens.
Well, that's what I love about you, Joseph. You put in the work. Anyone that's watching, Joseph puts in the work. Like that's why he built a list of 12,000. He's cold DMing people. He's confident sending out those cold DMs to build network, and then he's putting in the work to put out good content. If you can do those 2 things, 3 things, this becomes really easy. And then for anyone that's watching, again, like if you want to monetize whatever it is you're working on, content is how you do it, is one of the ways you can do it. And LinkedIn, depending on your business, is one of the best places to do it. You just have to learn how to do it for LinkedIn. And that's what Joseph has provided here today. So we have about 5 more minutes. We can go over if we need to. Is there any questions I can answer for you, Joseph, outside of monetization?
Yeah. I guess just like life advice in general. Like, I'm starting my full-time job, but I just love entrepreneurship and just like the creative freedom that comes with that, and being able to just think of new ideas and like execute on them. And I've done like some drop shipping in the past, doing like e-commerce. I've done like some political ad campaigns with Facebook. I've done like organic stuff on LinkedIn. So I really love marketing, and I love like startups. But I'm going into this full time job, and obviously I can do it on the side. But like, what has I mean, and you're like the opposite, right? Like you've created like so many companies in the past like 7, or I don't remember how many years it was, but like, yeah, how has that been? Um, yeah, just in like how's life been being an entrepreneur?
It
And
it's been absolutely awesome. So I had a six-figure offer to work at a bank at a college, and I declined it to do my startup full time, which failed. Next company failed. Next company was a grind. Like all these things monetarily didn't go right until later. But I think the long-term ROI of building business versus like going corporate, if you're just looking at the financial side of things, is actually greater. Because that's how, I think like again from financial side, that's how you really create wealth. Unless you can save money, which a lot of people have for some reason a lot of it's very hard for people to do that. Live below their means, save up. Like you could get a job that pays $80,000 a year and save $40,000 a year for 3 years and even $120,000. And now you're in a really good position to start investing. So it's all about how, again, whether you're an entrepreneur or you go the corporate route, like living below your means is the most important thing. Like a lot of kids out of college, they get a high paying job and they fucking blow it on the nicest apartment, going out all this stupid shit. When really, if you can save as much money as possible, live below your means, that's incredible. Now, if you can have a side hustle on top of that, like what you're doing, that's even more incredible. So, like, if you go and work at Salesforce, I don't know if it's gonna be remote or not, but either way, if you can like get your cost of living so fucking low, and then just save up as much money as possible while also working on your side hustle, 3 years down the line, you're gonna have more money than 95% of Americans in the bank, and then you can go and work on whatever projects you want. You can easily quit your job and have enough money to cover your next 5 years if you're living really below your means. So that's the biggest thing I'd say is like, if you really love building businesses, then I I love it. So I can eat shit for however long that I needed to, but really still be very happy because I love what I'm doing.
yeah,
Um, but it's a balance, and it's the most important thing is self awareness. It's really understanding yourself and what's important to you, and looking at a high level. What do I want to be doing? Like, what's going to bring me the most happiness? And I like to look at it in like an overarching, like, what is the most important to me? Where do I want to be striving towards? And like more of the long term, kind of. And then what do I need to do now to be taking those steps?
mm,
Because I mean, in your situation, you're really young. Like, you have so much time to be figuring these things out. And like, even if you're like 30 years old, 40 years old, you can always change what those goals things are going to change over time. You just need to figure out what those are. And then the most important thing is to be working towards them. Because that's going to make you really happy. As long as you're working towards whatever it is that makes you happy, that'll make you happy. So I think understanding those things so you can strive towards that is the only thing that's going to bring ultimate happiness. So that would be my suggestion: is dig inner, figure those things out, and then work towards them.
yeah, yeah. That's great advice. Um, yeah. How so as an entrepreneur, like you seem to always be the CEO of the things that you do. And I had a question about like your how you see your strengths and weaknesses, and how that relates to like a CEO. Because for me, I feel like my strengths are like moving really fast, innovating and like being creative and storytelling and like getting people on board with the mission. But I think my weaknesses are like structure, operations, like people management, and making sure things don't break. And like I've tried to find people to work with me who are like complementary, but then like sometimes it makes me think like, oh, do I like shouldn't I be a good manager? Like shouldn't I be a good like structured Like, should I try to like really like make those improve at those things, or is it okay to just be an entrepreneur and just like hire a COO every
It's
time?
totally okay and hire CO. I think it's really important to be aware of those things you're not good at and hire for it. So like personally, there's a lot of things that I am super bad at that I just don't care to improve on. There's things that I'm not great at that I do want to improve on because I think it's important. And then there's things that I'm really good at that I want to just try to focus all my time and energy on, because all of this is like a snowball. Like think about if you had someone that can complement those things that you're not as good at, and they just get to focus on that and you just get to focus what you're good at, you're going to like 3x the speed of what you move at if you try to start doing other things that you either don't like or that you're not good at. Now, there are some things I think that are really important in terms of improving, especially if you're going to be running a company. Leadership skills are really important. But things like not being super structured or organized, there's a ton of people I know. I mean, what's his name? Sam Parr, the CEO of The Hustle, they just sold. He claims that he's very unstructured and like not very organized, and he hired a president who is really good at those things. So I think it's important, again, just be self-aware about that and go, do I want to improve on this or not? And then make the decision from there. Personally, I would say like I am really organized. Like that's one of my strengths, is like being organized, understanding who I need to hire and what I need to hire them for. When it comes to like moving forward, I can like map out strategy really well. I'd say I'm better at strategy, less as good as at execution myself. I like putting people in place to execute. I can move way quicker when I do that because then I'm constantly looking at like the bigger picture. But a lot of times like you can't afford to do that when you're first starting out. So I love getting my hands dirty. Like I like to understand the high level of whatever I'm doing, unless I really hate it. And there's certain things I just don't like doing. So I'll hire it as quickly as possible. And I don't think it's good to like force yourself to do things that like you either aren't good at or really hate it, because then you're just going to be miserable doing it, unless it's so important that you just need to suck it up and just do that first in the morning. So first in the morning's a trick to like get those things out of the way that might be a little harder.
Yeah. Do you dedicate a lot of time to like improving at those things that are not strengths?
No. The things that aren't strengths, I really don't think I spend a lot of time on them. I think like for me, one of the things there's certain things I've always wanted to do and just haven't had time. One of them is produce content, and this project allowed me to do that. So that was always on my list. I always wanted to put out content because I was mentoring a lot of younger entrepreneurs, and the problems are the same. So I was like, I really want to put this content out at scale. So then instead of doing a bunch of one-on-one meetings, we can help more people. So I've always wanted to do it. And my problem was I just didn't know how to put that into fruition. So I just then now that I'm in this situation, I got to learn all these things really quickly. So I think that was something I wasn't great at, and I was able to overcome it by just putting myself against the wall, which is something I highly recommend everyone does. Put yourself against the wall if you can, where you're in a situation where you have to perform, because if you do that, then there's no other option. But I don't know. The things that I'm not good at, I really do think that I like, for the most part, I almost always put someone else in that role. Almost always. Unless I like really have to do it or we just don't have budget.
Yeah. Okay. That's cool. That's good to hear. Yeah. That's very validating, because yeah, I've been thinking about like things I'm good at and things I'm not so good at, and like questioning if that's really, if that like makes or breaks like an entrepreneur. But it's cool to see that.
Not at all. And the thing is, like, again, there's a lot of things that you're good at. Like building an email list of 12,000 this quickly is, again, it's really impressive. Learning how to do these things, being able to reach out, being able to network and being comfortable with that, those are really good skills. I would really, really just try to work on the things you're good at and continue to do them, unless there's something that you're not good at that you're like, I really actually want to be good at this. But what's cool, and this is what I've learned, is when you're not good at something, if you hire for it and you hire someone that already is really good at that thing, then you can learn it significantly faster. Because now you have someone that is an expert, and they're doing it all the time. If you want to learn it, you can just see what they're doing, or start helping them out a little bit. So that's a really quick way, or that's a really quick way to kind of learn something and still have it like really move forward very quickly, but still get the experience that you want.
Yeah. Okay. That's good advice. That's interesting.
Yeah. Any other questions you want to ask before we wrap up here?
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. This is like really fun. I'll like follow up with you and probably ask you more questions just as they come. But
yeah, well, Joseph,
yeah.
I can't thank you enough for jumping on here. This is, I would say, this is probably the most I've learned from a conversation for in terms of like content, and since starting the project when we jumped on with our YouTube mentor, and learned a little bit about YouTube and how to create for YouTube. So I really, really, really appreciate you coming on here. Anyone that is watching or is watching the replay, that is looking to start creating content, this is, you've outlined it, something that works extremely well, that anyone can go and figure out how to do it for themselves. So I really appreciate you sharing all this and coming on.
Yeah. And if anyone's watching, connect with me on LinkedIn if you want.
Yeah. How can people find out about you?
How can people find out? Yeah, just LinkedIn is probably the best way.
LinkedIn. And it's Joseph Choi on LinkedIn.
Yeah, if you just search Joseph Choi, I'll probably be there.
Cool. Awesome, Joseph. Well, hey, thank you so much again for everyone that's watching. Thanks for joining this week's live stream. I'll see you guys in the next one. And again, if you want to connect with Joseph, it's Joseph Choi on LinkedIn. Again, thanks, Joseph. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, Mike. See ya.